Bienvenidos a Newsroom por Canadá Latin Channel, información en tu idioma. Los saluda con el gusto de siempre su amigo y servidor Héctor Chaparro, transmitiendo en vivo desde la ciudad de Calgary, Alberta, en Canadá, para Latinoamérica y para el mundo. Gracias por ser parte de esta plataforma digital Canadá Latin Channel y por seguirnos miércoles a miércoles, 7:30 hora de Calgary, 9:30 hora de Toronto y 8:30 de la Ciudad de México, en este su programa Newsroom, donde miércoles a miércoles traemos temas de interés para la comunidad latina en Canadá, para que estés enterado de lo que está sucediendo con estos temas que nosotros manejamos. Y antes de comenzar, quiero invitarte a que, pues, si no nos sigues en nuestras redes sociales, vayas y te suscribas. Estamos en Facebook, en Twitter, YouTube, nuestra página web www.canadalatinchannel.com. Te recuerdo que estás en Newsroom por Canadá Latin Channel. Y obviamente, Canadá Latin Channel es información en tu idioma. Bueno, también quiero quiero decirles que el día de hoy vamos a tenemos la entrevista con la vocera de la compañía de aerolíneas aérea WestJet, quien nos va a estar hablando acerca de lo que está sucediendo, qué es exactamente lo que tenemos que hacer, qué es lo que no se debe hacer, y vamos a quitar el velo de esa desinformación que a veces llega a nosotros, porque gente que escuchó, qué sucede, qué pasa, pero no estamos seguros. Así que el día de hoy, Lauren Stewart va a estar con nosotros platicándonos de eso. También la mala noticia que les tengo a mi comunidad latina, y les pido una disculpa de antemano, es que vamos a estar haciendo la entrevista en inglés, pero al final voy a tratar de hacer un resumen de lo que vamos a tratar, pero además también voy a hacer este video, lo voy a poner con subtítulos y lo vamos a repostear probablemente en 2 días. Yo les avisaré cuándo. Así que la gente que pues por alguna razón no entiende un poco de inglés o quiere leer los subtítulos en español, bueno, tengan paciencia. Vamos a poner el video también con subtítulos para que aquellas personas que sean más amigables con el idioma español, bueno, tengan también pues la posibilidad de hacerlo de esa manera. Por lo pronto, una disculpa porque va a ser en inglés, pero no todo está perdido, como dije. Gracias de antemano y yo les voy a avisar cuando vayamos a poner el video con subtítulos. Por lo pronto, quiero invitar, ahora sí que valga la redundancia, a nuestra invitada del día de hoy, quien es Lauren Stewart. Ella es la vocera de la compañía WestJet y nos acompaña el día de hoy y quiero darle la bienvenida. Lauren, thanks for being here in Newsroom for Canada Latin Channel. Welcome.
Yeah, nice to see you again. It's been a few years, I think, Hector.
Yes, a few years ago, I think when the pandemic, it wasn't here,
No,
right?
I think we had just maybe launched, I feel like maybe Costa Rica. I remember us talking about Costa Rica.
Yeah,
That was great.
it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, Lauren, thanks for giving us a little bit of your time. We know
Absolutely.
you're busy, but Lauren, I mean, people asking about what's going on with the airlines. I know you are a spokesperson for WestJet, but in terms of what's going on in the whole Canadian airlines, talking to Air Canada, WestJet, and the small airlines as well, pretty much everybody is doing the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very difficult time. And I think, when I look back towards the end of February, when all this started to happen, I don't think any of us really anticipated that we would still be kind of in this same situation, not just for aviation in Canada, but I think in the world at this time of year. It's December now, so it's been a pretty rough, I would say, 10 months for a lot of people and a lot of industries, and aviation is included in that. So, in March, when things started to get really serious, and basically what we saw was that our bookings were just dropping off the ledge. And not only that, but our cancellations started outstripping bookings. So it's basically like a giant drain opened, and all of this money just started to flow out because people were getting frightened. And in the middle of March, we made a decision at that time that because of this, that we were going to ground our aircraft and stop flying internationally and transborder. So I believe it was March 22nd was our last day that we flew internationally, and from there, and for quite a long time until I believe July, we just focused on connecting Canadians within Canada. So We had 39 destinations in Canada. The other thing that we really focused on, and this was not just starting in March, we always focus on safety, but we really started to add many more hygiene and safety measures in order to ensure that our employees were safe and that our guests are safe, and that we were doing everything absolutely possible to ensure that we were not putting anybody at risk of getting the pandemic on board or during their travel. So you would see now, I would say for a lot of the airlines in Canada, that we're all have multiple layered measures in place to ensure health and safety throughout the journey. It's basically table stakes now. Everybody has these measures, and recently Dr. Theresa Tam, the Chief Medical Officer in Canada, did say that they have seen no transmission or very little transmission on board. I believe she said, if you have any accounts of this, please let me know, because these layered measures that we've put in place have created a very safe environment.
Lauren, on general terms, how bad and how this pandemic, this COVID, is affecting for the airlines? I mean, I probably the company need to be laid off people, and restrictions as well. At the time, we need to go to be on board as well, and
Yep.
doing the travel. I mean, what is the impact of this pandemic for the airline?
Well, it's massive, and I think it's massive for the travel and tourism industry overall, because in a way it's a food chain. Airlines are at the top. They bring people to the airports, who go to the conference centers, who go to the restaurants, who go to the bars, who spend money in all of these places. And with what's happened, we just people haven't been flying. So at the lowest point, we had only about 5% of our guest load on board. So, we normally would fly around 70,000 people a day on average. That's not really even busy season. That's just average. To flying 3,000-4,000 people throughout our network a day. So the impacts of that have been crazy. The other part of this is, of course, it's very expensive to run an airline. So putting 135 of 181 aircraft on the ground, it means there's much less work for many people. We started out this year with 14,000 WestJetters. We've been growing the number of WestJetters over the past few years. I've been here for 5 years, and with every year WestJet's growing, our network growing, and we had to make some really, really difficult decisions that impacted a lot of people that of no fault of their own. There's nothing that any of these people have done, that they are no longer working at WestJet because these were the decisions that had to be made. And actually, I wouldn't mind just talking about that, because one of the things that we did in the beginning was we realized that we weren't going to be able to employ all of these people for probably quite a while, looking at how the recovery is going to go. So we actually did go out to all WestJetters to give them a choice and enable them to have a little bit of power around their future. I think it was really important to our executive team in a time where a lot of people felt powerless, to have a little bit of that say in what your future looks like. And about 500 people came forward voluntarily, taking early retirement or taking basically leaving the company of their own volition. And that was, everybody was really grateful to those people for doing that and making that sacrifice so that others could continue to work. Unfortunately, because this has been prolonged, there have been more people that have been laid off, and now we have about 4,000 active WestJetters out of 14,000. So there are still some that are on layoff, not exactly, they're still WestJetters, and then there's those that have permanently exited the company. So it's a lot of human impact for sure, a lot of sadness, a lot of just, I think it's really rough. And I don't know if you ever, Yeah, but it's been really also heartwarming to see. There's actually a Facebook page called Forever WestJetter, and it's the people leaving and what they have to say about their time at the company and the culture and what they've learned. It's actually astounding, just the outpouring of gratitude of people that no longer have a job. It actually speaks a lot, I think, to the culture that we have built, and hopefully we can continue to have, even though there's many less of us.
Well, the good news, Lauren, probably you know already, the vaccine probably will be ready at the beginning of the next year. So probably that will be the different scenario, right?
Yeah.
But Lauren, I want to ask you another kind of thing. So, what kind of measurements you guys have taken to handle the flights and the people when they are inside of the planes, outside?
Yep.
I mean, all the logistic. I mean, what kind of measurements you are taking?
Sure. So, a lot of this has been a little bit of, watching the science along the way. So all of these measures haven't been added at once, but they've been additionally added.
Sorry for interruption. It's a lot of misunderstanding, right? People talk about, you need to do this when you be on board, or you need to avoid this. But I mean, that's only the people probably heard, right? The neighbor or the friend or whatever. So
right. So there are a lot of things that take place when you get to the airport. For one thing, in most airports now you are required to wear a mask. Everything is socially distanced. So boarding, deplaning, all of that, you're asked to keep your distance from your fellow passengers. We've moved to touchless kiosks. So you're just using your cell phone, scanning it in order to do your check-in. There's a self bag drop. So you're taking and you're putting your bag on the conveyor yourself. And then when you get on board, if there is room on board, if you ask, we are able to move you away from others if that's something that you would like to have. But as I mentioned, actually, I think just between you and I, with the HEPA filter on board, even if somebody is diagnosed with COVID beside you, it's not considered close contact because of how the air movement is. But on board, you are required to wear a mask. There's absolutely no exception to that. Prior to boarding, your temperature is taken. So it depends on the airport, but at the major airports, that is, it's a Transport Canada, that it's done by Transport Canada. And at the smaller airports, WestJet is taking your temperature. You are required to answer a health questionnaire about your health. So I'm sure many of us have done that. Have you had close contact with somebody with COVID? How are you feeling? Those sorts of questions. And those are all requirements. So once you're on board, it's actually fairly normal. Everybody is wearing masks, and our service has been reduced by quite a bit in terms of the onboard service. So if you're sitting in economy, you're going to get water and a cookie, which is just, it's passed out to you, but there's not as much the flight attendant isn't standing asking what you want. So just less contact that way. And we're asking people to not line up for bathrooms. So there's nobody kind of waiting in the aisles close to each other. Yep. So there's a lot of differences, but I have flown 6 times since the pandemic started. And once you're on board, it's actually very normal. All the engine noises are the same. You have your onboard entertainment. You can sit and relax and kind of do your thing. And so it's funny. It's funny that you go through all this, and it sometimes feels a little bit like, a little bit like gives you anxiety. But then you go through it and you're like, it's actually pretty normal. And you get to your destination and safely and on time.
So no beers, no alcohol inside? No fun?
No. No.
No, nothing.
I believe in premium I believe in premium cabin that there's a little bit more service, but overall it's pretty reduced. Yeah. But you can bring your own, not your own alcohol. Don't bring your own alcohol, but you
Nice.
can also
Okay.
bring your own snacks on board.
Excellent.
I don't want to
I
get you
will do
kicked
that
off the
for
flight, Hector.
sure. Lauren, we talked before we we are live on the air. We're talking about the. I heard this thing. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard inside of the plane, it's very safe because the airflow is
Mhm.
just coming through, and all. If somebody has a virus inside of the plane,
Yeah.
the same airflow it's taking out that virus. Is that right? It's safe or not?
Yeah, so we use hospital grade HEPA filters. So that's the same filtration that you would have in a hospital environment. Those are on all of our aircraft. So it is the air is renewed every 2 to 3 minutes, and it makes it a much more unique environment than, as I said, if you do go to the grocery store, they do have a lot of measures in place in a lot of the grocery stores that I have been in, but this is what makes an aircraft a very unique environment. And the fact that we do have all of these layered measures, all of the, for instance, the aircraft gets fogged. So that's where we spray disinfectant on it. There's tons of extra cleaning. Everybody is handed a sanitizing wipe when they get on board, so you can do your own extra sanitizing. We're really going above and beyond in order to ensure that we're doing our part to keep the aircraft clean and to make sure that people are safe when they're flying.
Awesome. Lauren, I have another question. How many do you know how many destinations are canceled because COVID? I mean, that is a huge impact, not only for you guys, but even for
Mhm.
people who need to travel, in between countries. How many destinations you are canceled because this pandemic?
Well, it tends to fluctuate because so let me start out by saying right now, we are only flying about 25% of our normal schedule. So at the start of 2020, what we had anticipated flying in December of 2020 is nowhere near what we are flying. And what's happening is that on a very regular basis, we have to take a look at what's happening in terms of border closures, and that even goes down to like cities, where there's different restrictions going in place. So we're updating our schedule very often. So it's hard to give you an exact number, but what I can say is that we're flying significantly less. We have added some more international destinations in. So in Mexico, we're flying to Huachuco, we're flying to Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo. And
Yep.
hopefully as we see that people are interested in traveling and wanting to go there, and as quarantines also start being addressed in Canada, that we're going to be able to add more of those types of destinations, because we know that Canadians love Mexico, and we know that there's a lot of people that have families and reasons and business down there to attend to. So one of the things that is, I think, a barrier to this type of travel is the quarantine in Canada. For most coming back into the country, it is 14 days, and that's a significant amount of time to be staying at home. And we don't want to be doing anything in an unsafe manner. But for instance, at the Calgary International Airport, they are doing a trial right now in order to safely reduce the quarantine. So coming back from an international destination into Calgary, you have the option of doing a test at the airport. You isolate for up to 48 hours, and then until you get your negative test result, and then you are free to not be isolated anymore. So you have to stay in Alberta, but it lets you kind of go about your business. So we're hoping to see this type of trial kind of expand across the country, so that we can so people will want to travel internationally a little bit more. I think it's important, and I think it's, this is based on health and science. So it's the safest it's the safest way of doing it. We know that people that are coming back in are getting tested and they're catching any of those people who have COVID. And so there's not any community transmission coming back in either.
Yeah, it's really tough for people because it's they need to take more time to do. But I mean, as you say, the good news is the people can just do this fast test,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. And I don't know if I actually answered your schedule question, but it is significantly reduced, and we are updating it often. And hopefully, as 2021 comes in and we start to see that vaccine and how it's going to be handed out, and as more testing is available across the country, I think there's some bright spots to look forward to. So hopefully, people can start to feel a little bit more confident taking these trips and getting out there, even domestically.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, we have people is interacting right now, and they have questions. So hold on, we can answer the question. Well, Lauren will be answer the questions. So just be patient. And gracias a todos por estar aquí. Ya la gente está empezando a preguntar. Vamos a tratar de preguntarle a Lauren, todas las preguntas, a ver si puede contestarlas. Una disculpa nuevamente por aquellos que pues no entienden un poco de inglés. Vamos a tratar de poner subtítulos en otro video, así que les agradezco, gracias y una disculpa de antemano. Estamos hablando con Lauren Stewart. We are talking with Lauren Stewart. She's a spokesperson of WestJet, and she had the information, she had the right information, and she knows exactly what's going on in the airlines industry or air industry. Lauren, before we go to the questions of the people, I will ask about do you know, or do you have a specific program on a specific things for this Christmas? I mean, it's a seasonal. It's a Christmas season. People, even when the government says don't go outside of Canada, don't travel, or even don't travel in between provinces. Do you guys have a specific offer or something especially during this Christmas season?
Well, I wouldn't say it's specifically like we have sales that are ongoing. So that's something. We just had our Black Friday sale. Basically, the prices right now it's really depending on which day and location you want to go to. But I would say, like, in looking at where I've wanted to go, the prices are actually really good right now. And it's simply a matter of supply and demand. But the other thing that we've said is that it's not really up to the airline to determine what people feel is essential travel. So, it's hard to say to somebody like essential travel isn't going to see a relative that you haven't seen in a year, or somebody who's sick or traveling for business. That's not what we're in the business of. So we've tried to keep Canadians connected within Canada. For a long time, we did fly to the 39 destinations, and you may have seen that we have pulled out at some Atlantic destinations just recently due to a very, very low demand. It's been challenging there, but we are keeping a schedule to ensure that people can get where they need to be, and we're watching where that demand is, and hoping to connect people there, because like I said, we're not in the business of determining why you need to travel. That's up to you. We're there to get you there safely.
Yeah, I know. Well, the recommendations government is I never be worried to say just take precautions, and the recommendation is don't go outside of Canada because you never know. But people probably with this new news about vaccine probably will be ready. A lot of people will be thinking, "Wow, okay, let's go. Right, let's travel. Why not? Right?" So
and with there is testing available that you can do. You pay to do it, but in Alberta, for instance, it's through a lab called DynaLife, and I believe they have locations at Shoppers Drug Mart, so you can go in and do pre-travel testing, and so upon departure that you are not traveling with COVID, and then you're tested upon coming back. So I think that these are ways of people to be confident that they're being safe as well. On top of that, all of the airlines that I can think of are offering COVID travel insurance. So with WestJet, that's free. It's up to $2 million. It's for all international destinations, including in the US. And so that's, if something were to happen and you did get COVID down there and you had to isolate, and so you're there for extra time, like it's going to cover hotel expenses, that sort of thing. So there's these things that are being offered in order to help people feel safer doing this, and I would say that the travel industry is doing everything that it can to keep people safe. I know I have a couple of my colleagues going down to Mexico actually on Sunday. They're part of our social team, so they're going down to capture some content at one of our partner hotels, and it's hard for us to say, well, they can't go, but we're flying there, and we have confidence in our aircraft, and we have confidence in our hotel partners that these are their reputations on the line, and they're doing everything that they can as well to make sure that the experience is safe and healthy, and also fun.
Well, that's good. That's good, because you're taking all the measurements. I mean, the safety measurements for the people to have confidence to go travel with the right airline, right?
Yeah.
So, Lauren, people is asking and is interacting with us. So I'm gonna read a little bit. People who here. First of all, it's in Spanish. We have somebody watching us from Ecuador. It says, dice, hola, buenas noches, saludos desde Ecuador. He says, hi, hello, we regards from Ecuador. Gracias por estar seguirnos y estar pendiente de nuestra plataforma digital. Thanks a lot. Lauren, another guy who is following us every Wednesday as well. He's from Mexico. It's Guillermo. He says, buenas noches, Héctor. Muchos saludos desde Mérida, Yucatán, México. Gracias, Guillermo. Un saludo y un abrazo hasta Yucatán. He's from Yucatan, Mexico. So he says good night and saying hello. Okay, Lauren, I have Ray Garcia. He says, good day from Ottawa, following your professional program. Hold on. I put here. Yeah. Professional program after the pandemia is over. Do you think airplane tickets will be extremely expensive?
Well, that's a very good question, Ray. The challenge that we're facing right now and that we're seeing is that a lot of the costs of the pandemic are at this point being pushed down to the consumer. So I'll give you an example. Like airport improvement fees. So we have seen a lot of our airport partners having to raise their airport improvement fees by quite a few dollars. So that's not a cost that the airline, all we do is capture that fee for the airport. It's passed on to the customer and we collect it on their behalf. But it's very worrying to us, and something that we're asking the government to address is helping out all of these partners in order to ensure that the cost of this pandemic is not offloaded onto the traveler, because we know that travel is dependent on people being able to afford it. And so we know that this isn't going to be helpful for the recovery of the industry, and really for the recovery of Canada overall if we make it exorbitant to fly. So what I can tell you is that I hope not. It's really hard to know. We're still really, I think, at the beginning stages of recovery. And there's still a lot of information, I would say, to come from the government on what sort of support we're going to get that could be helpful in ensuring that the cost of flying in the future isn't going to price most people out of the market.
Well, Reyes as well, he's asking, do you think that after this pandemic, the regulations that we are following will continue?
I don't know. That's hard. It's hard to say. Like we've heard, when you talk about when 9/11 happened and how it really changed the travel industry, I don't know if this is that much different in terms of kind of the the hygiene measures that we've taken. I think some of them may relax a little bit, but who knows if maybe wearing masks when traveling becomes more of a norm. It's hard to say. I can say for the foreseeable future for WestJet that probably a lot of these measures will be in place.
Well, he looks like a reporter.
Oh,
I mean, he's asking a lot of but interesting questions, by the way.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, Ray. Thanks for do these kind of questions. Another question he have already is: due to the COVID-19 situation, do you have more medications or equipment in the plane?
I don't know if we have more, but we definitely have been taking a lot. As I've mentioned a couple times, because we kept all of our flights between all of our Canadian destinations, so to the 39 destinations, it was to ensure that a lot of these, the medications, critical and essential items like PPE were getting where they needed to go. And actually, just one really interesting thing is that we work very closely with the Canadian Blood Services. And so on a lot of flights, we're flying blood and plasma products to smaller areas that don't have the supply that they need. So it was really important to us to provide that service and to make sure, that it was one of the reasons why we didn't ground our aircraft in Canada. Overall, we did reduce the schedule by a lot, but we did make sure that all of those destinations remain connected.
Perfect. We have another one a little bit longer. CHJ Rodel. He says, one of my concerns is the quarantine need after every travel aboard. What are your thoughts around the accuracy of the rapid testing, and is any news around having personal rapid testing kits so the traveler can self-test at destination and potentially reduce the quarantine time so the close connect with the loved ones aboard can happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So rapid testing. Well, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that we do have a research trial that is taking place in Vancouver at the Vancouver airport. So we're working actually with Providence Healthcare and UBC to test the efficacy of rapid testing in the airport environment. So basically it's a volunteer thing. Before you're traveling on WestJet, you get the nasal swab and you get your test results within 15 minutes. We just started this last week, so it's still early stages, but we've had good feedback on from the people who have taken part. But basically, it's going to demonstrate if this is feasible in the airport environment in Canada. And the other piece that we are actually trialing here, and a lot of the reason why the researchers are involved is to test the efficacy of these tests because they are not approved by Health Canada yet. So hopefully what comes out of this is that these rapid tests will get approved so that we can start using them. I learned an interesting fact that rapid tests are a little bit less sensitive than PCR tests. So PCR are the ones that take 24, 48, 72 hours to get back. That the rapid, and the reason is I guess you don't want to be picking up in the airport environment somebody who maybe has already had the virus and isn't shedding it, so isn't still able to give it to others, because then operationally, like, you're going to pull that person out of the lineup and then they're not going to be able to travel. So there's a little bit more leeway with it, but that overall, I mean, it's effective at capturing people who are actually giving the virus off of them at that time. So lots of learnings. This is just one of other many research trials that are going on, I'm sure, but hopefully it will allow for more rapid testing to take place in Canada, to help kind of make people feel better and more confident in traveling. He had another part of his question though. Could you put the question back up for me?
Hold on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any like news about the rapid testing kits being available. They may be, it's just that I don't know that. But we do understand the concern about the quarantine. And I don't know where you live, but in terms of having to quarantine, it is 14 days. We do know that it is a barrier to travel. And actually, I saw today that the Center for Disease Control in the US actually reduced their quarantine needs to 10 days because
That's
I
good.
think I think that they found that, the 14 days is a bit too long. So it will be interesting to see what happens in Canada. And then as some of these trials take place, like the one at the Calgary airport that I explained about earlier, hopefully we can see that spread across the country at other entrance points so that people can take part and know that they're safe through the testing and reduce their quarantine as well.
Perfect. Another question for Ray is, he says, do you have a PSW or RPN, nurse or doctor in each plane?
No, not physically, but we do have access to on the ground through a satellite phone that we use. So if anything happens on board that requires medical advice, we have access to them. In order to help understand maybe what's needed, if we need to give oxygen, if we need to possibly divert, depending on the situation. So it's very good for us because even though all of our flight crew are trained for emergency situations, they are not doctors or nurses. So it just gives us that professional advice that we need.
So you covered, basically.
Yeah, we're covered.
Yeah.
And actually, it was interesting. I learned before we had that, we would divert a lot because you're worried, you don't want somebody to be severely ill. So we would divert, and it's a lot of money and it causes a lot of disruption and
For sure.
and it can be so now this allows us to make very measured decisions while keeping people safe. And yeah, it's a good service.
Perfect. I have another question. Maria Mejia, she says, hi, do we need the COVID test prior to get into the airplane, even if the destination do not require?
Nope, you don't. So yes, there are some destinations that require it. I was going to use Hawaii as an example, but actually they don't even require it. It just, if you don't have a negative test result, then you do have to quarantine for 14 days. But traveling within Canada, you do not require a negative test result. You can pay for that ahead of time should you want one. I was explaining to Hector that we have a lab in Alberta called DynaLife that, for instance, is offering pre-travel testing for, I believe it's $150. So if that makes you feel better, then you can. Or if you are traveling out of Vancouver and you want to take part in the rapid test, you can do that, and it is free, and it will give you some reassurance before you travel domestically as well. But nope, you don't need it. But I will say that you should always check the destination that you're going, if it's outside of Canada, to make sure that you are covered in terms of all of the requirements.
Awesome. Aries, she's asking in Spanish. I will say in Spanish, and I will ask you in English. Ella dice, ¿qué edad es obligatoria para los niños usar mascarilla? She's asking about what is the age to wear masks for the kids?
So Transport Canada rules are that anybody over the age of 2 are required to wear masks on board. However, we do understand that is can be challenging, especially I have had a 2-year-old, and we know how they sometimes don't like to cooperate. So our flight crew are trained to be highly understanding of those types of situations, and there is leeway that would be given for children under the age of 6.
Well, open the border.
Well, I would like to. We have to do it safely, and it's actually not up to WestJet, but we are working with the government on. We have been asking for testing and for some scientific ways of reducing quarantine, so that there is a little bit more free travel. That's for sure.
Yeah, people. I mean, people would need to go outside, need to go with siblings, with parents, with all the cousins, with the brothers, everybody. But I mean, we recommend all the time. I mean, it's Christmas, we know, but if we can avoid, just to try to come down and don't spread that this
I
virus,
know.
it's I think it's the best we can do just for now,
Yeah,
right?
it's a really. I mean, I think we all feel it just on a personal level. It's tough. I'm a single mom, and my parents, they live in Calgary where I live as well, but we can't really see them, and it would be so nice. But I am trying to keep that same thing in mind. It's like, okay, it's just a little bit of sacrifice so that we can make sure to get out of this soon.
Exactly.
I think we all want that, and to return back to whatever that normal way of life is, and have our kids have play dates and see their friends and go to the mall or whatever they like to do, play sports, travel. We all love traveling, and it would be really great to be able to get back to that.
Yeah. Okay. Maria, she's asking as well. He says, Dine Life, it's not showing in Calgary. I have tried to book since a month, and I did try to book today, but still is not sparing. I had to book my appointment in Red Deer.
Okay, Maria, are you maybe we can take this offline and I can give you my email address after as well. But I noticed on their website that it's not as clear as I thought it could be. I think there's a section where you do like travel testing and then there's other testing, because I was having the same issue where it wasn't showing Calgary labs. So maybe if Hector could get your email or
Yeah.
send you mine, then I can help you, because I know there are labs in Calgary that are doing the testing, and I would be glad to help you find that out.
Yeah, for sure. You can send us an email. This email is appearing right now. Info at canadalandjanet.com. Just send that email, and I will
Yeah,
just forward it to Lauren, and yeah, she can answer that
yeah.
answer for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like everybody has had to move so quick that sometimes it's like, you put things up and then maybe it's not as clear as it could be. So and I'll also send Maria maybe our COVID testing page, because it has a lot of information on like where things are and where you can get tested and that sort of thing. So I think it's clear.
I think so. I think so
But
either.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ivy Corral, she says in Spanish, thanks for the information. Gracias por la información. Gracias, Ivy, por seguirnos. Thanks a
De
lot.
nada.
We have another person from YouTube. Is Roberto Andrade. He says, "Hi guys, I just joined. I can see you are talking about travels questions. I'm planning to travel to Toronto. I'm international student."
Oh, that's great. Well, Roberto, I don't know what your question is, but I can hazard a guess.
Go
So I'm
travel for
thinking
sure. It's worth it.
spokesperson and mind reader. I so basically, as an international student traveling into Toronto, if you're flying directly into Toronto Pearson Airport from an international destination, you will have to isolate for 14. Oh, there's your question.
There we go.
What are the
I'm an
requirements for
international
kids under
student
12?
planning to travel to Toronto. What with all my family? What are the requirements for kids under 12 years old?
Um, the it depends on if they're 2 and under, or if they're 12, between ages 12 and 2. Isolation is required. Isolation will be required for the family, I believe, for the 14 days. Specifically for children, if they're over the age of 2, I would say they're going to have to be wearing a mask on board. And I would recommend it anyways. I do think if you can get your child over the age of 2 to wear a mask, then that's great. And yeah, I'm not really sure that I'm answering your question that well, but you might have to check the Canadian website about arriving as a foreign student to make sure that you're being all covered off and everything that you need to be prepared for upon arrival.
There we go. So Maria, she says Colombia doesn't require it anymore. Well, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, Maria, for that comment. And Ruth, she says, thank you for sharing all available information. Thanks, Ruth,
You're
for giving us.
welcome.
Thank you. Lauren, conclusions. I mean, airline is flying, so people can fly,
Yep.
can buy tickets, but you have all the safety measures inside and outside of the airport and the airplane as well, right?
The airport and the airplane environment are very, very safe. And I think if you look at any of the research that's been done, and even what's been said by our own public health advisors, that travel is safe. And we really hope that some of these barriers get removed in a safe way in order to encourage people to travel again. And everybody just wear a mask. Let's get through this.
Okay, perfect. So, Lauren, I just say thanks for being here to explain all the people need to know about what's going on in the airplane, in the in this industry, right? And
Yes.
and appreciate your help and your answers as well. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot, and hopefully you can join us in another time as well.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you very much, Hector. Very nice to see you, and have a Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Perfect. Thanks. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully the vaccine will be ready next year, and everybody will be
2021.
happy. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Thanks, Lauren. You
Take
have a good
care.
night. Thank
Bye.
you. Bueno, gracias a todos ustedes por estar conectados aquí a Canadá Latin Channel y por seguirnos. Gracias, y esperamos que esta información haya sido pues importante y que haya sido también contestada. Gracias por estar pendientes y por interactuar con nosotros. Realmente agradecemos mucho esa interacción, y precisamente este era el objetivo de este programa, el que ustedes estén enterados, que hicieran sus preguntas para que pues se quitaran los velos que a veces nos ponemos, porque la mala información corre muy rápido, y como lo decía al principio, a veces el vecino, el primo, nos dijeron que está pasando esto, que se tiene que hacer, que no se tiene que hacer, pero bueno, Lauren nos acaba de decir exactamente qué es lo que sucede en el aeropuerto, y al momento de abordar, con las medidas de seguridad que pues el gobierno está mandando para que toda la gente que viaja pueda hacerlo de manera segura. Así que muchas gracias, y bueno, nada más quisiera hacer una recapitulación para aquellos que pues de alguna manera quisiera hacerlo en español. Bueno, Lauren hablaba de 400 personas, de 4,000 que están desempleadas por lo pronto, y bueno, para abordar se necesita usar la mascarilla. Y bueno, también dice que es muy seguro viajar dentro de las cabinas de las aeronaves, porque el mismo aire, los filtros que tienen son filtros de calidad hospitalaria, que es seguro, y que si hubiera algún virus dentro de la cabina o dentro del fuselaje, bueno, este virus lo puede expulsar el mismo flow de la cabina, ¿no? Están trabajando, la compañía WestJet está trabajando a un 25% de su capacidad, redujo destinos y redujo vuelos significativamente, y bueno, está trabajando y está volando al 25%. Eso quiere decir que pues prácticamente solamente los viajes domésticos son los que están viajando. Pero bueno, si tienen alguna pregunta más que hacer, les agradecería. Voy a poner aquí nuevamente nuestro correo electrónico, que es info@canadalatinchannel.com. Mándenos su comentario o su pregunta. Vamos a tratar de mandársela a Lauren también para que pueda contestarla, y pues también ustedes puedan tener la respuesta y la información directamente de quien la conoce y de quien es responsable de ella. Por eso nosotros aquí en Canadá Latin Channel, comprometidos con la objetividad y con la verdad y con las personas, tratamos de traer gente y a la persona indicada para que ustedes tengan la mejor versión, y la versión que tiene que ser sin intermediarios. Así que gracias nuevamente por estar conectados a esta plataforma digital Newsroom, Newsroom por Canadá Latin Channel. También les recuerdo que vamos a poner este video con subtítulos más adelante, para que la gente que pues no prefiere escucharlo, prefiere ver subtítulos en español, lo vamos a hacer también de la misma manera, porque nuestro compromiso, Canadá Latin Channel, nuestro eslogan es información en tu idioma. Y estamos comprometidos con la comunidad latina para ofrecerles información en español. Ese es el objetivo de esta plataforma digital y así lo vamos a seguir manejando durante siempre. Ese es el objetivo, para que ustedes tengan la mejor información en el idioma que todos manejamos, en el idioma español. Por mi parte, no me queda más que agradecerte nuevamente e invitarte a que pues, nos sigas en nuestras redes sociales. Estamos trayendo contenido de calidad, contenido de información que tú necesitas y debes conocer. Por eso estamos trabajando para ustedes, para la comunidad latina, no solamente en Alberta, a lo largo y ancho de Canadá. Así que si tienes alguna pregunta, si tienes alguna sugerencia, también sería bueno que nos la hicieras llegar. Algún tema en específico que quisieras que tratáramos también sería de mucha ayuda, porque finalmente nosotros estamos para servir a la comunidad latina. Es el objetivo de esta plataforma digital. Así que visítanos en Facebook, en Twitter, en YouTube, en nuestra página web www.canadalatinchannel.com. Ya no quiero aburrirlos mucho, me estoy extendiendo demasiado. Solamente quiero darles las gracias por estar en esta plataforma digital. Gracias y nos vemos el próximo miércoles, 7:30 hora de Calgary, 9:30 hora de Toronto, 8:30 de la Ciudad de México, con otro tema interesante. Vamos a tener un tema interesante, así que está pendiente y también vamos a estar actualizando información y estamos trayendo videos con información para que tú, como ya lo dije y lo repito, estés informado exactamente de lo que está pasando. Gracias nuevamente, gracias y no me queda más que despedirme y desearte muy bonita noche, muy bonito día, muy bonita tarde. A cualquier hora que pongas play este video, te deseo lo mejor. Gracias, gracias y les mando un abrazo a todos y gracias por estar en Canadá Latin Channel. Recuerda, Canadá Latin Channel es información en tu idioma.